Discover how one heartwarming gesture led to an incredible life-changing opportunity exposed. The rain tapped softly against the diner window, but inside, the warmth of Clara's smile brightened even the gloomiest of days. As she poured coffee for the regulars, her heart overflowed with gratitude. She was a working-class hero waking before dawn to feed her children and serve breakfast to their neighbors in Maplewood. But beneath her cheerful demeanor lay the weight of worry. Just days earlier, she mourned the loss of her own dreams. The idea of a better life for her kids felt like a distant star she could never reach. That rainy evening, while Clara wiped down the counter, a new face walked in, a tall man with a weathered look and a hint of caution in his step. Jim, a retired Army veteran, pulled off his cap and took a seat at the end of the counter. As Clara handed him a cup, their eyes met. Deep lines creased his forehead, telling a story of battles fought not just on distant shores, but also here at home. He ordered a simple meal, but Clara saw the hunger for connection behind his request. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked gently. "Just a conversation if it's not too much trouble," Jim replied, his voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. And so began their unlikely friendship. Over shared meals and countless cups of coffee, they unveiled their struggles. Jim spoke of his time in the military, the camaraderie, and the intense loneliness that followed. Clara revealed her exhausting routine, the two young children dreaming of bigger futures just like their mother. Every word they exchanged seemed to paint their lives with brighter strokes, knitting a bond that felt both comforting and real. However, fate has a way of throwing curveballs, and just as hope began to blossom, Jim received the news: the factory where he worked had closed, leaving him adrift and vulnerable. Clara's heart sank. Here was her friend, who bravely fought for his country, now wrestling with life's harsh realities. With trepidation, they both questioned tomorrow. How could they hold on to the dreams they dared to nurture? Inspired by Jim's passion for sustainability, Clara stumbled across a business plan tucked away in his battered notebook, a community recycling initiative, a beacon of hope amid the struggles. Filled with renewed vigor, she decided to take a leap of faith, boldly organizing a town hall meeting to rally support. The excitement danced in the air as she hung flyers around Maplewood, her heart racing. This was a chance to unite the town and breathe life into Jim's dream. But reality hit hard when the evening of the meeting arrived. Clara stood at the front with a lump in her throat as she introduced Jim's idea. The room buzzed with anticipation, yet was quickly overshadowed by murmurs of dissent from the wealthier residents. "This isn't the way to go," a voice sneered, shattering the hope that filled the air. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night escalated, Clara felt the weight of disappointment stinging her. Faced with hostility, she challenged the crowd, her voice trembling but fierce. "This isn't just about recycling. It's about justice, fairness, and transforming our community into something we can be proud of." Tension spiraled around the room, laying bare the divisions in Maplewood. Clara caught Jim's anxious gaze, his own heart racing. The imminent confrontation forced her to confront her fears and the bitter realities of her dreams. She could sense the hope dimming, threatening to unravel the life she so desperately wanted for her children. As Sheila, the town's most influential leader, leveled a harsh critique that cut through Clara's resolve, uncertainty coiled around her heart. Facing the boiling point of emotions, Clara stood frozen. Would they fight for change together, or would she end this dream with a heavy heart? The answer loomed, painfully close yet painfully far, teetering on the edge of possibility. Clara's heart thudded in her chest like a drum, a frantic beat that echoed the tension in the room. The angry murmurs filled the diner, drowning out her thoughts. All the reasons she had to believe in Jim's vision felt like they were slipping through her fingers. She could see Jim's deflated spirit, his eyes dimming under the weight of the crowd's disdain. Suddenly, she felt a small flicker of defiance within her. Taking a deep breath, she recalled the laughter of her children and the dreams she envisioned for them. It was that very hope that sparked her courage. It isn't about the waste. She shouted, her voice piercing through the murmur. It's about creating a future where our children can thrive. A future where we take care of our community and the planet. Don't you deserve that too? For a moment, silence washed over the room, as if Clara's words hung in the air. Then, a few murmurs of agreement surfaced, fragile yet palpable. Clara's heart surged with a hint of hope, but it came with a cautious tremor. Would this be enough to rally the community? Jim leaned forward, his brow furrowing in concentration. We can create jobs. We can educate our kids, making them stewards of the environment, he chimed in, his voice steadier now. It's about investing in Maplewood, in our future. The crowd reacted, but not as she had hoped. Voices rose, some citing profits, others dismissing the initiative as a pipe dream. Clara felt the swell of anxiety clawing at her, but somewhere at the back of her mind, a thought evolved: how could she turn their fury into fuel? Let us discuss it, she urged, her voice now softer, yet fierce with determination. What if we meet halfway? What would it take to make you see that this can be beneficial for all of us? The rich oaks of the diner closed in, and Clara felt the heat of the lights overhead. She scanned the faces around her, desperate for a glimmer of understanding. As she locked eyes with Sheila, she noticed something unexpected: a shadow of doubt in the town leader's expression. That flicker of hesitation ignited something inside Clara. I may not know everything about recycling, Clara continued, speaking more to Sheila than the rest, but I know this community. I know our kids are watching us. This is our chance to teach them about working together. A murmur of contemplation spread in the crowd. Some faces softened, others still hardened in skepticism. Clara sensed she was getting closer, but she refused to back down. She turned to Jim, gesturing for him to join her side. We're not here to take from you. We want to create something that benefits us all. A second chance for Jim, a chance for a cleaner home for our children. Sheila crossed her arms, deep in thought. Clara held her breath, praying the pulse of possibility did not fade. I will work with you all, Sheila finally spoke, her voice regal yet cautious. But I need to see a solid plan. I want proof. It isn't just a lofty aspiration. Clara's heart raced again, excitement blending with uncertainty. They could still make this work. But the path would be lined with challenges. Thank you, Clara said, a mix of relief and resolve filling her. We will create that plan and show you everything we can achieve. Applause erupted, tentative at first but growing stronger. Clara felt an energy surge through her veins. There was hope. The meeting had ignited a discussion rather than a dismissal. As she left the diner that night, she walked alongside Jim, their spirits somewhat lifted. We have a lot of work ahead, he said, a glint returning to his eyes. Clara nodded, a smile breaking across her face. We'll create that plan together and show them what we can do. But as they stepped into the rain-soaked streets, the weight of reality began to settle again. Clara wondered how many obstacles lay ahead, how many people would try to shut them down, and whether they could muster the strength to fight back again. And just as those questions formed, she could see a shadow lurking by the diner entrance. Someone had been listening, but who? The spark of hope ignited an unsettling curiosity, leaving Clara nervous about what might come next. Clara's footsteps quickened, the cold rain seeping through her coat, but she barely felt it. The shadow was gone now, swallowed by the darkness of the night, but uncertainty gnawed at her. Had they just ignited a spark for change, or were they stirring a storm they weren't ready for? Did you see that? Jim asked, glancing back over his shoulder, his brow furrowed. Someone was definitely there. I didn't recognize them. She shook her head, trying to focus. That's the least of our worries right now. We need to start planning. They faced another failure looming over their heads, yet the glimmer of hope from the diner felt like a warm fire in the bitter chill. Together, they began walking toward Jim's workspace, a small shed nestled behind his house, filled with tools and scrap materials he'd been collecting for years. Clara remembered how he had once made toys for the children. Maybe they could create something meaningful now, but they had to act fast. As they entered the shed, the familiar scent of wood and metal filled the air. The space was cramped, with projects scattered everywhere, but Clara felt an emotional comfort here. This was where Jim had dreamed, where he had poured his heart into every design and half-finished object. Okay, we need a plan that will win everyone over. Let us start with the basics, she urged, feeling a rush of adrenaline as she picked up an old notebook from the cluttered table. Let us outline our ideas, get statistics, community benefits, something tangible they can't ignore. Jim pulled out a chair and sat, his hands trembling slightly as he took a pencil from the table. What if we also include a community workshop where everyone can contribute ideas? A real hands-on approach? Clara's heart warmed at the thought. That could draw people in, make them a part of the solution instead of bystanders. Yes. We can showcase how easy recycling can be. Let us lead by example. They dove into brainstorming, throwing out ideas, scribbling notes, and mapping out their vision. Clara felt invigorated, her mind racing with plots and plans. Hours slipped by. They drew plans for community cleanup days, workshops for families, and local events where they could all come together, a united front. But as excitement bubbled within her, the memory of the lurking shadow nagged at the back of her mind. What if someone were plotting against them, ready to undermine their progress? Just as they finalized their sketch of the plan, a loud knock echoed through the shed. Clara jumped, her heart racing. Who could that be? She whispered nervously. It's late. I don't know, Jim replied, eyes darting to the door. Should we check? Taking a deep breath, Clara nodded. They had to face whatever was out there, together. Cautiously, they opened the door, the hinges creaking in the dead of the night. Standing on the porch was a figure wrapped in a dark coat, a hood shadowing their face. Clara, the stranger said, voice barely above a whisper. I know what you're trying to do. You need to listen to me. Clara felt a chill run down her spine. Who was this person? What did they know? Her instincts kicked in. Was this the push they needed to reach their goals, or a threat to everything they'd worked for? A lifetime of hope, all resting on the balance of a single, unexpected encounter. Who are you? Clara demanded, taking a step forward. What I have could change everything. Their tone implied urgency, a dangerous allure hanging in the air. As uncertainty surged, the stakes rose higher. What would this stranger reveal, and would it lead them to success or further complications? Clara's pulse quickened. She could barely catch her breath as the stranger's words hung in the frigid air, thick with tension. Her mind raced. What could possibly change everything? Can you just step into the light? Jim's voice broke through her thoughts, steady but laced with a hint of authority. Clara felt his presence beside her, a warmth amidst the chilling fear nudging her incrementally back. The figure shifted slightly, lifting the hood just enough for a hint of their face to be revealed, a tall young woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that seemed to spark a familiar recognition in Clara's memory. Wait, was it Sarah? Clara breathed out the name, disbelief weaving with hope. Is that you? The woman nodded, her expression grave. You both have to listen. We don't have much time. People are already getting involved in ways you don't realize. Clara exchanged a nervous glance with Jim, trying to sort out the whirlwind of emotions flooding her chest. Sarah had been an old friend, passionate about environmental activism before she moved out of town. Had she returned, or was she pulled back into this fight? What do you mean? Jim prodded, stepping slightly closer to the figure as if to gauge her intentions. Who's getting involved? The people you think are on your side aren't not truly. There are influences, money, power. If you keep pushing for your workshop and initiatives, you're putting yourselves in danger. The rain intensified behind them, and Clara felt as if the world outside the shed was closing in. Sarah, we need this plan. The community needs it, she implored, her voice trembling slightly. We're trying to connect and show everyone how they can make a difference. I know, Sarah said, urgency sharpening her tone. But I'm warning you. There are groups out there watching closely. They want to stop you before you even start. Her eyes glinted in the low light, filled with an intensity that sent shivers up Clara's spine. What should we do? Jim's voice was firm but edged with concern. He was becoming her anchor in this storm of uncertainty. You need to be strategic. Make connections with the right people, but be discreet. And she hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing danger. Don't trust anyone who is too eager to help. Use your ideas, your passion, but keep your core close to your chest. Clara's heart sank, the hope they had built moments before now mingling with layers of fear. What had they stumbled into? Could they really trust someone who resurfaced from the past amid such chaos? Why are you helping us? Clara pinched her brow, exploring her unease. I'm back because Sarah paused again, eyes darting almost instinctively around them. I've lost too much to stand idly by. I want to fight for my home, alongside you. The rain had stopped, but the tension in the air was palpable. Or was it just Clara's mounting anxiety? Okay, let us regroup, Jim said finally, turning to Clara with a determined look. No more indecision. We need to leverage this intel. Clara felt her stomach churn as she nodded. They couldn't lose sight of their mission, but the road ahead was now riddled with shadows and uncertainty. Every step could bring them closer to change, but would it also pull them into danger? Meet us here tomorrow night. We can figure it out together, she suggested, glancing at Sarah, noting the flickering hints of trust blooming within that familiar face. As Sarah took a step back, she hesitated for a moment, locking eyes with Clara. Be careful, she whispered before melting back into the darkness. Clara felt hollow as the door swung shut. They had initiated something greater, but at what cost? What would they discover next as the clock ticked down to the moment they confronted whatever lay ahead of them? With every passing second, the stakes of their fight grew higher, and reality set in. Change would demand everything. Would they be brave enough to answer the call? The next day passed like a whirl of colors, distracted, impatient, and filled with a mix of hope and dread. Clara could hardly focus on her work. Every ticking clock beat was a reminder of the impending meeting, the gravity of their mission squeezing her chest like an unyielding vice. She couldn't shake the feeling that danger was stalking them, lurking just out of sight. Jim was quieter than usual, his mind clearly racing as much as hers. They met at the local cafe to go over their strategies. Clara fidgeted with her coffee cup, cradling it in her hands, seeking warmth in its porcelain embrace. Did you manage to get in touch with anyone who could help? I mean the right kind of people? Clara asked, desperately hoping for a distraction from her spiraling thoughts. Jim looked up, swirling the thoughts in his own mind as if unsure whether to verbalize them. I reached out to a couple of contacts from the network, ones that Sarah mentioned. They seem cautious but interested. Cautious is good, Clara replied, but uncertainty tinged her voice. Maybe we should have a backup plan just in case. Agreed, Jim nodded, but the weariness in his eyes showed he felt the weight of their decisions. But if we start second-guessing ourselves now, we might miss our chance. The conversation turned to logistics, how to present their ideas without revealing too much too soon. Each suggestion grew heavier as Clara scribbled down notes. As darkness fell, the air felt thicker, as if the world itself was holding its breath. They arrived at the shed just before dusk, glancing around to ensure they weren't followed. Clara's skin prickled with an unsettling mix of excitement and fear. When Sarah stepped into the light a few minutes later, her face was illuminated by a flicker of a smile that quickly faded. "Sorry I'm late. I had to be careful." "Are you okay?" Clara asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I will be, but we need to talk." Sarah's tone was urgent, slicing through the tension. "They're closer than I thought. I overheard something today." Clara's stomach tightened with apprehension. "What did you hear?" "There's a group planning to undermine your workshop. They're funding misinformation, sabotaging community trust. They want to make you look like you're in it for profit, not for the cause." Jim clenched his fists, the anger radiating off him palpable. "How can they even think that? We're trying to help." "We have to act smart," Sarah countered, her fierce blue eyes locking onto both of theirs, willing them to see the reality. "We need to rally support before they can twist the narrative. I have some names, people who might stand with us." Clara felt a spark of hope ignite within her, but it was quickly doused by the fear that clung to the air. "What if they don't believe us? What if they're too afraid?" "Then we show them courage," Sarah replied, her voice unwavering. "Sometimes all it takes is one spark. We start with our community, and we find others who will share our vision." They spent the next hour mapping out a plan, writing slogans, and envisioning gathering spots for their cause. Clara felt her heart race higher with every idea. This was more than just a workshop, this was an uprising for something far greater than themselves. But as they finalized their plans, a sudden noise shattered the focus. A car engine rumbled outside, headlights slicing through the growing darkness. Clara's heart somersaulted. "Who's that?" "Stay back," Sarah urged, shifting slightly toward the door, nerves strung tight. They huddled together, adrenaline coursing through their veins like wildfire. Clara's voice trembled. "Is it them?" The sound of footsteps echoed outside, growing closer. Who was trying to disrupt them now? As the door creaked open, Clara felt a rush of icy fear crash over her. And then, a silhouette emerged in the doorway, casting a long shadow into the shed. The world outside felt like it was closing in, and Clara whispered a silent prayer, bracing for whatever might come next. What lay behind that door could change everything once more. Would they be ready for the truth? The figure stepped into the shed, the light catching the sharp angles of their face. Clara held her breath, her heart a drum in her chest. Jim's fists were clenched so tightly, the knuckles turned white, while Sarah remained alert, her eyes narrowed, searching for answers. "Who are you?" Clara finally dared to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, as the silhouette stepped into the warm light. It was a man, tall and lean, with dark hair and an expression that flickered between concern and determination. "I'm Ben," he said, his voice steady yet urgent. "I know Sarah. We met a few weeks ago. I come with information about the group trying to sabotage your workshop." The tension in the room thawed slightly, but Clara's instinct still urged caution. "You're sure you're not with them? We can't risk this." "I promise, I'm on your side," Ben replied, glancing at Sarah for reassurance. "They've been watching you closely, and I couldn't stand by while they twisted the truth." Clara felt a weight lift slightly but still remained alert to the danger surrounding them. "What do you know?" "There's a meeting scheduled tomorrow at the park," Ben explained, urgency in his tone. "They plan to spread their narrative there. You need to be there to counter it. If you can get your supporters to show up, you can expose them." Jim's brow furrowed. "But how do we gather people on such short notice? What if they don't want to get involved?" Ben stepped closer, eyes blazing with conviction. "Sometimes, people need a reason to unify. They need to feel like they're not alone. You have to show them what's at stake. Share your vision, your passion. Once they see how real this is, they'll follow." Clara glanced at Sarah, whose expression mirrored her own mix of worry and hope. Could this really be the breakthrough they needed? "Okay," Clara said, determination blossoming within her. "We'll do it. But we have to act fast. Time is running out." They started making plans, brainstorming slogans that could rally their friends and neighbors, while Ben provided insights into the group's operations. He was well informed, detailing each person's role and the weak links within their plans. As Clara scribbled down notes, a flicker of hope emerged amidst the fear. This was a chance to fight back against the tide of misinformation that threatened them. But with it came a creeping anxiety, rising like a tide in her chest. What if they catch wind of what we're doing? Jim's voice was low, concern etched across his face. "They might," Ben replied, "but we can outsmart them. We'll use their meeting to draw people in, to show them the truth." Just then, a thought struck Clara, a gentle but powerful realization. We can't mask who we are. Let our message be clear. Let it resonate open and honest, like we always intended. Sarah smiled softly, the corners of her mouth lifting. Exactly. Our transparency is our greatest strength. Out of nowhere, loud voices erupted outside the shed, sending them into an anxious silence. Clara's heart raced again, the thrum echoing in her ears. Were they too late? Ben's shoulders tightened, and he exchanged a worried glance with Sarah. "We should move. They might be patrolling now." "Where do we go?" Clara asked, panic lacing her words. "Follow me," Ben said, leaning toward the door. "Stay quiet and do exactly what I say." As they crept out, Clara felt a mix of dread and adrenaline rush through her. This was no longer just about a workshop, it was a battle for their future. What awaited them outside could either quell their fears or put them in greater danger. With one last look at the safety of the shed, Clara stepped into the unknown, ready to fight for everything they believed in. But as they moved into the darkness, an even greater question loomed: what would it take for their voices to rise above the chaos? The night air was thick with uncertainty as Clara, Jim, Sarah, and Ben slipped away from the shed. Shadows danced around them, obscuring the path ahead, but Ben's confident stride provided a flicker of reassurance. They moved swiftly, senses heightened, every rustle of leaves and distant voice sounding like a warning bell. "Stay close," Ben whispered, gesturing them toward a narrow alley that bordered the neighborhood. "We can't be seen." Clara felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She wanted to scream out, to express the fear gripping her heart, but Ben's calm urgency pushed her forward. They squeezed past a fence, the splinters biting into her skin as they hurried through the darkness. "How do we reach everyone in time?" Clara asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "What if we fail?" "We won tea," Ben insisted, his resolve unwavering. "The people need to know what's really happening. Your workshop can inspire hope. Trust in that." As they crouched behind a line of bushes, Clara glanced at Sarah, whose face reflected both fear and determination. They had built something special, a community bound by shared dreams. Would it be enough? "Let us reach out now," Sarah said suddenly. "Our phones, we can send messages. If people can just come together, they'll listen." Clara nodded, hope igniting within. They pulled out their phones, fingers flying across screens as they crafted messages that explained the urgency without revealing too much. Clara worried about how they'd respond and if they'd feel the pulse of danger that loomed over them, but there was no turning back now. Suddenly, a spotlight pierced through the darkness, slicing the air between them. Clara gasped, instincts kicking in. They ducked low as footsteps approached, an echo that sent chills racing down her spine. Ben held them steady. "We need to stay quiet. If they find us, who are they?" Jim asked, his voice quivering just above a whisper. "The group against us. I've seen their faces. They don't care about the truth." As the footsteps drew closer, Clara felt tension thick in the air. Her heart pounded, almost drowning out the soft rustling sounds. She closed her eyes, willing herself to breathe deeply. This wasn't just about her work, or even for herself, it was for everyone who believed in a better future. But just as the footsteps faded, her phone buzzed with a message from one of her closest friends, Mia. "I'm in. I'll bring everyone I can." "What time?" A swell of relief washed over her, igniting a surge of determination. "They're coming," Clara exclaimed, her voice filled with a new energy. "If we can just get them all to show up tomorrow." Ben nodded, a new spark in his eyes. "Yes. We need to paint the picture before they get a chance to spread their lies." With renewed fervor, they continued to send messages, the night ebbing away under the glow of their screens. The responses were pouring in, people expressing disbelief, anger, and a fierce desire to gather. Then, the unmistakable sound of sirens blared in the distance, slicing through the quiet. Clara's heart dropped. Ben's expression hardened. "We need to move now." They scrambled back to their feet, adrenaline surging as they took off down the alley. Every step felt monumental, each heartbeat synchronizing with an undeniable truth. They were no longer just a group fighting for a workshop, they were something bigger, a collective voice rising against oppression and lies. As they reached the end of the alley, Clara hesitated, looking back toward the path behind them. Shadows tailed them like ghosts, threatening to swallow their resolve. "What if they catch us?" "They won't," Ben reassured her, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. "And if they do, we fight. Together." Clara squared her shoulders, steeling her resolve. She wouldn't shy away from the storm. Tomorrow was their chance, their moment to shine against the chaos. But as they stepped into the open street, she realized a terrifying truth: what would happen if everything fell apart after this? That uncertainty hovered over her like a storm cloud, one that threatened to burst at any moment. And still, the weight of it would not hold her down, she needed to rise. But would they be prepared for the fallout? Would their message resonate as they hoped? With every ounce of hope pulsing within her, she took another step forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. The dim glow of streetlights framed their path as Clara and the others hurried toward the town square, the weight of fear and urgency propelling them forward. Each footfall echoed in the stillness of the night, a jarring reminder that they were racing against an unseen clock. "Did you hear that?" Jim said, glancing back, eyes wide. "It sounded like a car. What if they're following us?" "They won't find us," Ben whispered, his grip still firm on Clara's arm. "Stay focused." But Clara's mind swirled with doubt. Doubt mingled with hope in a confusing dance. What if tomorrow didn't go as planned? What if they couldn't rally the people against the powers that sought to silence them? As they neared the square, the night felt alive with possibilities. But underneath that thrill, a knot of anxiety twisted in Clara's stomach. She could almost hear the pulse of the crowd that might gather there, the anticipation, the dream, the hope that they might ignite in one another. "Okay, this is it," Sarah said, glancing around, her tone both cautious and resolute. "The fountain is usually where everyone meets. If we set up there, people will see us." They approached the fountain, which glittered like a gem under the moonlight. Clara felt a sense of belonging wash over her. This was their space, their community. If they could spark hope here, it could ripple outwards like a stone skipping across water. Clara pulled out her phone again, typing out a new message to Mia, urging her to gather anyone she could. "We need a strong start," she thought, her fingers racing. "A connection that binds everyone together." As they positioned themselves at the fountain, the sound of approaching footsteps made them freeze. Clara's heart raced as a figure materialized from the shadows. It was Mia, breathless and wide-eyed, but behind her, Clara caught sight of others, friends, acquaintances, even strangers who had heard the whispers. "Mia, you made it!" Clara exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "Of course. I brought friends, too," Mia beamed, gesturing to the growing crowd behind her, a mixed bag of courage and concern on their faces. "And I told them your workshop can awaken something huge in our community." The crowd surged forward, curiosity and fear swirling together. Clara's heart fluttered at the sight of familiar and unfamiliar faces, all drawn together by a shared need. This was where change could begin. "Listen, everyone!" Clara shouted, raising her voice to cut through the murmurs. "We know what's at stake. But together, we can stand against the lies and the fear." A ripple of energy pulsed through the group. People exchanged nervous glances, fear still evident, but Clara could see something else in their eyes, a flicker of hope. She took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "Your stories matter. Your voices matter," she continued, letting her passion ignite their resolve. "This workshop is just the beginning. We can create a movement." That glimmer of unity sparked a flame, igniting whispers of agreement. The crowd began to gather tighter, their nervous energy morphing into something more as they shared their own ideas and fears. As Clara's voice rang out, she felt the weight of the night lift slightly. This was no longer just about avoiding shadows or sirens. It was about standing up, about taking back what belonged to them, daring to dream together. And then, as if on cue, the sirens they'd heard earlier returned, this time louder, more urgent. The thrumming dread returned, and the shadows cast by the officers' flashlights danced ominously. "We'll need a plan," Ben said urgently, his eyes scanning the horizon. "They can't break our spirit. Not now." Clara felt a wave of determination washing over her. "We fight. Together." But even as she said those words, her heart twisted with worry. What would they do if the confrontation escalated? What if they were forced to defend everything they'd built? Would they falter, or would they hold strong? As the cold air wrapped around them and the chants began to swell, Clara knew they stood on the brink of something momentous. Yet, with each heartbeat, she couldn't shake the nagging thought, was their unity enough not only to shield them but to bring the change they so desperately sought? That question loomed larger than any threat. And as Clara turned to face the gathering crowd, her heart raced with both fear and fierce resolve. If they were to make history, they needed to rise as one. But would the storm they faced tomorrow be more than they could bear? The atmosphere crackled with tension, the looming presence of sirens piercing through moments of solidarity. Clara felt the air shift as every face in the crowd turned toward her, eyes wide, breaths held. She sensed their fear, but also a flicker of courage. They were at a crossroads, and she needed to lead them somewhere meaningful. Clara stepped forward, her heart pounding like a drum. "This isn't just about us," she shouted, her voice unwavering despite the dread swirling around them. "This is about everyone who feels silenced. It's about standing up for what's right." The crowd murmured, the urgency in her voice stirring something deep within them. Clara met their gazes, hoping to stoke the embers of hope she saw beginning to light. Mia and Ben moved closer, their presence reassuring. "Let's draw up a plan." Sarah piped up, her anxiety visible but her resolve firm. "We can't just wait for them to come. We need to take the first step. What if we raise our voices together?" Someone called from the back. Clara felt the swell of possibility rise, the spark igniting into a flame. "Yes. We'll do it here," she said, pointing toward the statue that loomed over the square, a reminder of resilience, of standing tall in the face of adversity. "We can organize a rally, right here tomorrow. If we show them our strength, they'll see we're not afraid." Whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. Clara watched as fear turned to determination. They were ready, or at least willing to try. But she couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. Was this enough? Did they truly have the strength to confront the uncertainty ahead? As if to answer her question, a loud crash echoed from the street. Clara's heart leapt. It was followed by the dim glow of headlights cutting through the night, inching closer. The crowd's unease settled heavily on her chest, and she felt the shift in energy around them. "Stay calm," Ben urged, his voice cutting through the rising tension. "They're trying to intimidate us. Let us form a circle, shall we stand united?" Mia shouted, moving quickly. Clara saw the crowd respond, instinctively gathering close, their shoulders brushing against one another, forming a ring of solidarity. The headlights stopped a few yards away, and figures emerged from the vehicle. Clara squinted into the brightness. Flashing badges and stern expressions filled her with dread. The officers started to walk towards them, their presence oppressive. "Everyone, stay strong," Clara shouted, her voice steady but her insides trembling. "Who's leading this protest?" One officer barked, stepping forward. Clara could feel the weight of his gaze, the challenge in his tone. "We are," she found herself saying, the words escaping before her mind could catch up. "We're here to voice our concerns about what is happening in our community. No one should be silenced." The officer scoffed, his voice dripping with skepticism. "You're just kids. What do you think you can change?" The crowd fell silent for a moment, Clara's heart racing as she thought of how to respond. Then, a voice from behind her spoke up. "Together, we can change everything." It was a young woman she didn't recognize, but the fire in her tone ignited the crowd. "Yeah." Someone else chimed in, voices overlapping now, building a chorus. "We have a right to speak. We want our community back." Clara's heart soared. She felt the united spirit rising within them, palpable and charged. This wasn't merely a confrontation with authority, it was a proclamation of their resolve. "Listen," Clara said, raising her hand to calm the surge of voices. "Tomorrow, we'll gather here. We'll show them our unity, our strength." But the officer wasn't backing down. "And what if we tell you to disperse? Then we'll gather somewhere else." Clara shot back, fire in her eyes. "But we will not back down. Not now." As tension hung thick in the air, Clara realized they were not just fighting for their voices, it was for their rights, their dreams, their future. In that moment, she knew the choices they made had the power to ripple out beyond the square, beyond the badges. But would they truly be prepared for what would come next? Clara felt her heart thud. Tomorrow was going to change everything. Would they all stand together, or would fear creep back in? What awaited them at dawn? The sun peeked over Maplewood as Clara stood in front of the fountain, the morning sky swirling with shades of orange and pink. The chill in the air was a stark contrast to the warmth of hope swelling in her chest. Today was the day they would rise together, united in purpose. She looked out at the gathering crowd, feeling the energy hum within her, a blend of apprehension and exhilaration. People were trickling in, bringing with them a mosaic of faces and stories. Each person took their place, wordlessly affirming their commitment to this cause. Clara's heart swelled as she spotted familiar faces, friends, neighbors, even strangers who had heard the call. Every shiver of doubt transformed into a spark of courage. "Are you ready?" Jim asked, stepping beside her, his presence reassuring. He'd been her rock through this storm, his unwavering spirit filling the gaps where her own faltered. "I am," Clara replied assertively. She could feel it, the beat of something monumental looming ahead. "We'll show them today. We can't let this chance slip away." As the last few stragglers joined them, Clara stood tall at the forefront, engulfed in the sea of support. A hush fell over the crowd as she raised her voice, the words pouring out like a torrent of hope. "Thank you all for standing with us today. We have a chance to create something beautiful for our community." Cheers erupted, their vigor echoing back to her, fueling her resolve. She continued, "This is about reclaiming our voice, about coming together to build a better Maplewood. A place where our children can thrive." The crowd roared again, a collective heart that beat as one, filled with shared dreams and aspirations. Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself, letting the buoyancy of the moment wash over her. And then, from the fringe of the crowd, Clara noticed a familiar face. The town leader, Sheila, stood with determination in her eyes. It felt like a summer storm rolling in. Clara swallowed hard. A mix of hope and anxiety flooded her. Sheila's skepticism from the last meeting still echoed painfully in her mind. "Clara!" Sheila shouted, raising her hand, commanding attention. "I see you've gathered the community. But what makes you think this will be different?" Clara's stomach flipped, but she felt the warmth of Jim's hand on her back. "What makes us different is we're here together," Clara replied, her voice as fierce as her heart. "This isn't just my dream, it's everyone's dream. When we combine our voices, we can't be ignored." Sheila studied Clara with narrowed eyes, her expression softening slightly. "Then show me what you've got. Show us what you can do." Clara glanced at the crowd. This was their moment to shine. She motioned for Jim to pull out their meticulously crafted plans, displaying the outlines of community workshops, job creation initiatives, and educational programs to inspire children and families. Ben stepped forward, ready with statistics and research, arms open wide. They painted a picture of a flourishing Maplewood, sharing not just dreams but realistic pathways to achieve them. As they spoke, Sheila listened, her stony demeanor cracking a little more with each compelling point. Clara felt it. You could see the skepticism lose its grip. The crowd began to nod in agreement, embers blazing bright with each word shared. "We can work together to achieve this," Clara urged. "We just need the opportunity, we need your support." Silence gripped the crowd for a heartbeat before Sheila responded. "I can support this initiative, provided you can show a solid plan moving forward. Let us work together, but know that I will hold you accountable." Clara's heart soared. "Thank you." She beamed, sensing the shift among the crowd, a ripple of enthusiasm and hope that forged a new connection between leadership and the community. "I'll help distribute flyers, rally support," Sheila offered, her tone genuine now. "We'll bring Maplewood back together." Applause erupted, fueling Clara's sense of determination. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes as joy surged through her. She looked at her friends, the faces of those who had invested their energy, their hearts, and their courage into something larger than themselves. "Together, we can create a revolution of love, understanding, and progress. A future where we lift each other up." Clara shouted, her voice ringing with passion that entangled with the sounds of hope emanating from the crowd. As people began to discuss and share ideas, Clara caught Jim's gaze, and a silent understanding passed between them. Today was just the beginning. They had turned fear into fuel, and that fuel would ignite a fire in their community that would not easily be extinguished. In that moment, Clara knew they had transformed the shadows of uncertainty into a radiant light of possibility. They were ready to show Maplewood their strength, their unity, a family of neighbors willing to build a better future, no matter how daunting the challenges ahead might be. As the crowd broke into enthusiastic chatter, Clara felt a rush of gratitude for each face surrounding her. They had faced darkness, and together they would carve a path toward brilliant possibilities. "Now, let us get to work, shall we?" she called out, her heart full and content, ready to embrace whatever came next for Maplewood, knowing they would face it together. As Clara and her friends dove into discussions, the vibrancy of the crowd surged, revitalized with a sense of purpose. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. And it felt like home. Now, while you're here, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your engagement makes a difference. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread this hope and show everyone the power of community. Each connection counts. You are the heartbeat of this movement.